to Soul Naked, your podcast all about embodied healing and sacred sensuality. I am Tanya Hirsch, and this podcast is intended to guide you home to your truth and feminine power. Each episode is designed to inspire you to create a pleasure-filled life that is in alignment with your soul. Let's drop the mask and dive right in.
Our infinity, our divinity.
Welcome back, my loves, to the Soul Naked podcast. Oh my God, yesterday the podcast turned 2 years old, and I can't believe it's only been 2 years. And at the same time, it feels like it's just been yesterday that I've been sitting on my bed in Bali. I just quit my job as a school teacher and I recorded my first episode. I had 4 episodes in mind. And the rest, I had no idea what I'm going to talk about, if there's even going to be people interested in talking with me. And then it turned out to be this powerful, magical, really transformative podcast that I'm so grateful. I had 44 guests on the show. And yeah, I grew so much in these 2 years. And I'm so grateful for every one of you who's listening to this, who's supporting, who's sharing the magic. And I'm grateful for you to walk this path of truth that I know is not always easy. So I see you and I'm proud of you and I love you. And to celebrate this 2-year anniversary, I decided to give away 3 Soul Naked journals. If you haven't seen them already, it's almost the same picture as the cover of the podcast. My sister Julia designed it. It's a powerful, beautiful journal. It will be sent to your home, and all you need to do is to leave a review on the Apple Podcast and send me a screenshot before you hit send. You can do this via Instagram or via email if you're in my newsletter. And I'm so excited to read, how this podcast has touched you, has moved you, how it impacted you, what you took out of it, just right from your heart. What do you love about the Soul Naked podcast and why you're listening? And I can't wait to read it. I will announce the winners on the 1st of May. And now, without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. I had the wonderful, amazing Elaina Ray on the show. If you don't know Elaina, she's a magical woman. She's a self-made millionaire, and her story is really, really touching and beautiful. And we talked about her personal journey of what it means to live in truth when it comes to your business, to your life, to love. We talked about feminine leadership and what that really means. She shares a lot of powerful stories of her recent life actions, how she moved from Bali, where she created this beautiful life with a villa and had an amazing life, but her soul knew she needed to move on. So she left her life behind and moved to Austin, and she acts really fast. If she gets the download of truth, she acts on that, and she shares more about how that looked like and also how she knew she had to end this relationship. And there were a lot of powerful life changes, how she made a big decision in her business that just came from truth, and how people react to that if it really comes from truth. And it's been really powerful to hear her story and to feel her energy. And I can't wait for you to listen to this episode. I'm going to introduce Elaina for a bit, but you can read the whole bio in the description in the show notes. So Elaina Ray is a business strategist and mentor for online service providers and entrepreneurs in the personal branding and self-development space. She's the author of Becoming Self-Made and the host of the $1 Million Spirit Business podcast. And actually, her book inspired me to hire a team. When I read through her words, I just knew I needed support to grow, and it felt so aligned and easy to set up a team after reading her book. So she shares a lot of valuable content. Make sure to follow her on Instagram. Everything is linked in the show notes. And now, without further ado, let's welcome Elaina Ray to the Soul Naked podcast. So welcome to the Soul Naked podcast, Elaina. I'm so excited to dive deep with you today.
Yeah, excited to be here.
The first question I ask all of my interview guests is, what does soul naked mean to you right now in this moment? The first thing that comes up.
The first thing that comes up is that pursuit of truth, and where in our lives are we not fully, like, we might know that something is a little bit off or needs to be adjusted, like in a business or in a relationship, but actually really acting on it and being very, a word that's been thrown around lately in my inner circles with my other friends who are entrepreneurs and female leaders, is immediacy. Like when you notice that you're off your truth, not waiting 6 months or like going back and forth with the guy, or, continuing to sell a program that's no longer aligned, but like immediately, no matter how inconvenient it is, really being able to leap and switch and trust yourself with the truth that is emerging.
I love that so much. And you've just been through a huge transition where you really followed your truth and your soul, and you moved from a life that was already amazing in Bali, and from a partner, you shared a lot about this online, that was already good, but you felt there was more. Your soul was guiding you into a different direction, and you moved to Austin and left this relationship. Can you talk a little bit about this transition, how you knew it wasn't right anymore, and also the challenges that come up along the way if you listen to your soul? Because this doesn't always mean that everything is rainbow and butterflies. It still brings up a lot of challenges and growth along the way.
Yeah, I had just finished, like I had been investing in and building my dream home in Bali, and I had been nomadic for 9 years before I moved to Bali. So it was a big deal to finally commit to a place and to finally put down roots, and spent a lot of money and a lot of energy to develop this property and what I thought would be my forever home. And then, literally a few months after I finished the project, it was like this awakening or this dawning of awareness of, this isn't actually where I'm meant to be. And that's okay. Not freaking out and feeling like, oh, wow, I just wasted all of this time, money, and energy doing something that, is not my future, but knowing that everything that I've done along the journey is supporting me and, where I'm meant to be going. And just really had to trust this crazy soul calling. I had never been to Texas. And I'm like, am I really going to pick up my whole life and 5 years of building community in one place, and finally having that and just move across the world because it feels like the right thing to do? And every single time, I think I have quite a lot of practice with those nudges, though. Like maybe a lot of people listening to this, like when we're in the practice of it and we're quite fluent in that language of the soul calling, we just know it's going to be good, even if it's crazy. And yeah, so I let go of everything, dissolved a life, shifted a home into a business. And after a month of being here, I thought, yeah, maybe I'll feel out being here for a year or so. Immediately I knew, like, this is my home and this is my people. And I was starting to meet all of the reasons why that's the case now that I'm here. So just, I think I have a high tolerance for crazy, for inconvenient, for nobody else is going to get this, or it's going to seem, insane, but I trust that feeling. It's a very particular sensation in my body and in my heart that I know.
Yeah. I love that. And I feel the more we trust it, the more we gain also the trust into our soul, that no matter how crazy it seems on the outside, and even if not a single person on the outside can understand, because it looks amazing from the outside, but nobody feels this calling of our truth and our soul and our heart and our longing, and just the knowing doesn't even have to make sense that there's more waiting for us. And yeah, you're just an embodied example of that. It doesn't have to make sense. You just followed that impulse and you created a new life within a few weeks, and it's probably more magical than you could have ever imagined. It creates the space for magic to happen. And I'm curious, did anything in your business shift with that change? Like, did it align or rearrange as well?
100%. I'll get to the business things in a second, but yeah, just the practice and, like going through the portal and going through the, I remember this moment of being in Bali, and I thought I was going to move with my partner, who I was dating at the time, who had been dating for almost a year. And I remember like the conversation that I had with him where I realized that he wasn't going to come with me and that we weren't going to do this together. And just like the raw fear and just collapsing on his bedroom floor alone because he was away at the time. And I was like, oh my God, I'm about to not only do this batshit crazy thing, but I'm about to do it alone. And that wasn't part of the plan. And just like sobbing on the floor, like a mess, and feeling all of this resistance to like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can go back to a country I haven't been to in 10 years and set up a whole life without this person who I love and go through a breakup at the same time. I don't think I'm going to make it. And the move of like, okay, getting off the floor and deciding that this is unfolding for a reason and I have to trust it and I have to accept his truth and I have to accept my path. And then seeing now on the other side of letting go of that relationship in particular, like why I had to do this alone, why it was the most aligned thing, why it was the highest path of advancement for me and for him. And getting that level of reinforcement of, from raw fear and all the resistance to I just trust because this was in my highest. I do feel the divine guidance. I do feel really supported. It's been very visceral in this transition going through that. And with matters of love in the heart, it's so much harder than just an address or just shifting your country location. And we could probably talk about, like, I've been through a lot. People told me, a good girl the other day, they told me, like, you're relentless, you're ruthless, you're Kali when it comes to cutting off relationships when the second they've really started to go in an unaligned direction or you feel like you're holding each other back. They said, that I'm one of the people who can just like sever the cord fiercely because I want the truth. I want that soul naked relationship. And if it's not this, then we better stop now so that we can have that and move on with our lives.
I love that. And it takes so much courage and strength and trust, especially if you don't know what's going to come on the other side, if you're in the void of not knowing and not having what's waiting. If you let that go, there's no plan B, there's no other option. There's just this void and this deep trust that whatever comes is divinely guided and even more magical than you could have planned it with your rational mind. And sometimes it requires to cut people off. Sometimes it requires to leave a dreamy home, something you've invested so much energy and love into. And yeah, thank you for sharing that so openly. On the outside, it sometimes can feel like it's easy for you, and people meet you, it's like it comes easy for her, but it's truly not. We still go through these processes of really going through a death experience. I had a similar experience when 2 months ago, I'm living in French Polynesia on a little island, and from one day to the other, I just knew I had to leave. But I've built 1.5 years also to create this life, and it was a dream for my whole life. And I left everything in Germany to move to this place, and it was a devotion to my soul. And then the island was like, you're not supposed to be here, but I didn't listen. And then something happened that was so traumatic that I just knew I had to leave right now. And it was like this 7 months of nothingness. I knew I'm coming back in September for my retreat, but in between I knew I'm not supposed to be there. And in the beginning, it felt terrifying to not know where I'm going to be, who I'm going to be with, what's going to happen. And I really needed to let that version die that was attached to this old dream and to this island and into the nothingness. And it requires a lot to really go through this death part and not to skip it and go back to something that feels familiar, to allow that journey to unfold in the most divine way. And I'm also now on the other side of that void, and it's so much more magical than I could have ever experienced. I'm connected to so many soul family sisters that I would have never met if I would have stayed in Morea. So sometimes we need that, I call it the gentle ass kick from the universe to push us into a different direction. And we don't even need to wait for that. If we know, we can trust it. And the more we do that, the easier it gets to know it's going to be okay. It will all make sense, even if it feels like chaos right now. It will align. And to come back to the question, in your business, how did this impact your business and your structure and anything that needed to be realigned through this process of your own change and death and growth?
Yeah, well, just seeing you in your rebirth and really like commending you, and thanks for sharing that part of your story. And one last comment on the relationship side. I actually have a lot of passion for talking about this. I'll share about my business, but it's also like, I just want to, for anyone going through a breakup or, thinking about going through a breakup or realizing that they've got a truth that needs to be acted out with another person and rearranged, that I'm not immune from the thoughts of, oh my gosh, if I break up with this person, I'm never going to find love again, or no one's ever going to love me like this, or maybe just I'm truly destined to die alone. And I'm, I have all these different requirements, and, I have very particular, like a different model of relationship that I want to be in. Like, I don't want to be a mom, and I'm very clear on that. And there's thoughts where it's like, I don't know if I'll ever find someone who will see me in that or who want the same thing. And coming back to again and again, being able to like be with those thoughts and go through a period of like, okay, that part of my shadow is there. And that those like depressive, anxious parts of me are there, and they get really activated when going through a void, but that doesn't, I'm not going to feed that story. And just knowing that that's not true. There was a reason I'm like dying to something else, is so that something even better can come through love wise. And that's always been the case. Like, relationships always get better. That always, like, we become more capable as women of expressing ourselves and sharing what we want and calling forward the best in a man. And so that's really what I rely on with all change, actually, is just knowing that I'm so capable of creating the business or the community or the relationship in a reflection of me. Like, the way that I show up causes those things to come to me. And so I'm in control. I don't have to worry about a scarcity of men or a scarcity of friends, or, people tell me all their crazy dating stories, no matter what city they're in. They're like, dating is so bad in this city, and there's so few. I'm like, oh gosh, just stop with the stories, because it's you. If you're able to hold yourself with a certain energy and call men forward and hold your standards and behave a certain way that's in alignment with you, you're going to have amazing people showing up. It's you, it's not them. It's not like these circumstances. So with business, since 2021, I've been on a journey of moving away from so much like private coaching, group programs, and launching, because for me, the priority in my life has always been travel. It's always been the freedom of like, this summer I'm going to go to Europe and I don't know how long I'm going to stay. And I'm just going to be completely offline the entire time as a person, but my business will be online. My business will still be making 100K months. We'll still be running with all of our systems. Me, the human, I'm going to be like off flowing because I've set up a lot of structure to support me. So I've really like leaned more and more into that. And for the last couple of years, I was just running really 2 programs that were bringing in, millions of dollars. Plus, we have our passive income and a lot of other parts of the business. And I realized like I didn't want to be running these 2 things that I'm known for. And they're evergreen. So I always had people in my energy space. And I came back from like 3 weeks offline in Costa Rica and Mexico. And I just felt everyone in my space when I got back, and my team, I have a big team and they're amazing. And they're like, everything was running great. Everything is doing what it was designed to do. But I just felt like, oh, I actually want to get this even more simple. I want to make the money I'm making now, but I don't want people like constantly in my energy. I don't want to have such a big team. I don't want some of the things that I've set up, and they've served their purpose. It was kind of like a completion moment. Like, great, I've used this model. This model works. It did its job. And now I want to be more free. And I have systems set up to do that. So I had to literally overnight, I just felt into, what if I closed down the masterminds, all of them? That's crazy. And then I just informed my team like the next day. I woke up and I'm like, yep, it's feeling right. Like, this is the end of that chapter. And then I just informed my team the masterminds are shutting down, and they're like, what? What do you mean? They're just shutting down the program that everyone hires you for. I'm like, yep, nope, it's good. We're going to sell courses. We're going to sell the membership. We're going to double down on our ads. We're going to like sell all of our passive products. I'm going to launch things that feel really exciting, and they're going to be short acceleration type of things. They're not going to be year-long journeys with me anymore. I'm shifting. And then we like pretty much 3 days later announced it to the public, issued an offer to just work with us for the last couple of months of the masterminds. And now we're like completely shifting the energy we used to put into those into building up our courses and our passive stuff. And it's a huge thing. But what was really cool was my team, even the ones who I had to let go because their role was tied to the implementation of those programs. They were like, thank you for demonstrating what it looks like to be a leader who's just clear on what's aligned and what's not, and who's willing to like jump off the cliff and try something new or move into a different part of the business because you see who you are becoming and what you want. And if you don't want this anymore, you're not hanging on to it. And that's setting a really amazing example for us. Like, well, thanks, guys.
Yeah, it's just a mirror also of how brave you are in your personal life. Like it's the same step as moving to Austin. It's also in your business. If it's not the truth anymore, if you walk this path of truth, you get better and better in not tiptoeing around, but just if the truth drops into your body, to know it's time now. I don't have to wait another week. I don't have to explain and do all these things. If it's true, you can just trust your soul. And the more you trust your soul, the more you inspire others, like your team. This is like the new paradigm of leading. I feel if you're really true to your heart and your soul, it's an invitation to show what's possible in this world and not to do it the old way, that it's a process and we have to over explain and it has to make sense, but to say with so much clarity and truth, people can feel that. And that's what happened in this process. And it's so beautiful to see that. What if someone is listening and they think, oh my God, this sounds amazing, something inside of them is resonating, like I want to lead my life through this. Do you have tips for navigating through these transitioning phases to make them shorter? Maybe they don't have to be exactly like you getting the drop in and doing it the next morning, but how to live their lives more from their heart and their soul and their truth, and to align quicker than this process that can extend for a while. What helped you on your journey to become more clear to your truth and align and act accordingly?
Yeah. I mean, what comes to mind is it's a very body-based experience. Like I just felt the heaviness in my body. And I felt, even back in Bali towards the end, I was feeling very heavy. It was like my soul, like something was just like sitting on my soul. It felt crushed. And the second that I started to feel into what the alternate reality might be, I could feel like the levity coming. So I think being able to have that barometer within your system where you just try on different options and actually feel what happens. Like when I started to just tell my team, I want to tear down this program, before I told the whole world, speaking it out to them, it was like the baby step, because it's my team. I could tell them the next day that, oh, just kidding, we're not going to do that. But I felt so much relief. I felt like a somatic shift in me as I was saying it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is having me feel lighter. This is feeling expansive. So I think the barometer of like what feels contracting and what feels expansive in your body is really important to pay attention to, even with the small things. I would say I practice a lot with, even a friend suggests going to one restaurant and I'm like, oh, I feel a bit of contraction around that. Or I would be pleasing them by saying that I would go there with them. These small things. Or I should go to yoga this morning, but I'm actually feeling really contracted around that. And I feel more expansive if I just stayed home and took time, like putting on my makeup this morning. And that's going to be my morning routine. Like these small things. But then also, honestly, what comes up is I've done a lot of detoxing work. I focus very much on my physical vessel. And I think that my energetic purity and quality comes from a lot of that. Like I'll go through cycles of, very, working with naturopaths and working with herbs and clearing out my liver, paying attention to my organ systems, or the stretches of living in an ashram in India and doing yoga and mantra and chanting, all of these things that they have an actual physical effect on the body. I think for me, and I haven't drank alcohol since 2015. I had a whole alcohol awakening years and years and years ago. I don't do any substances. I prioritize this body. For me, that gives me the communication to spirit in a more streamlined way. And I think that's something maybe women who are very focused on like pleasure, feminine embodiment, or, intuition and things may overlook, because it's like a little bit adjacent to allowing those practices to have even more power.
Yeah, I love that. The clear channel needs a healthy body and a healthy vessel to be able to come through and to receive the messages. And it's a whole holistic approach for me. It's not only the body, it's also the emotional alchemy work to release the trauma that's keeping the transmission to come through, and to feel what's actually aligned, especially for the people-pleasing women and for the ones that whose needs never have been met in family systems. They always had to overstep their own boundaries. For them, if someone's listening and that feels aligned, I also feel it's so important to come back to a practice where we drop in with our emotions as well, because the body responds, the intuition responds, but it's also our emotions and feeling what do we need, and not having these tendencies and patterns of people pleasing and things in the way of really receiving the truth, and not already watering it down by thinking, oh my God, how is this perceived by my team if I tell them I'm going to drop down? What will they think if they lose their job? Like, to be so clear that there's no space for holes in your boundary and in your clarity for others to get in and leak and make you questioning your own truth, to be really, really, really clear. Yeah. I love that.
That emotional component is so important, not, in this process of letting, multiple programs that are, these huge, well-run machines by this point, like letting the people go who are supporting them. There was turmoil within me. There was anxiety. One of the women is a really good friend of mine, has been for years, and we transitioned into working together, and now we're transitioning back to friendship. But it was really important for me to sit with, wow, I'm like wrecked about this. Like, I'm really distraught. I am feeling lots of sadness. I'm feeling lots of fear, and holding space for that along my process. And then, sharing that in the conversations, and then getting to the other side of it. But I think, there's like I know that I need to make this decision for the business, but then there's still like, I'm a human having this like, I'm excited, I'm afraid, I'm sad, I'm mad where the things didn't work, whatever, all of it. And not bypassing that in the process of making the decisions either, I think is that dance of feminine leadership, and being able to, artfully and then like have those real conversations. And, I'm proud to say we went through that whole difficult conversation and came out where she feels good about it. I feel good about it, because we were able to share everything that was real. And actually, how funny it is, so often when I make a decision from highest alignment and it would, I think, negatively impact someone else, so many other times it's actually for their alignment too. And there's like, like she actually had a big like opportunity coming in that she couldn't give attention to because she was so focused on my business. And now she can say yes to that and jump off the cliff and go be supported in that area. And we were like, oh, wow, everything is rearranging for us, and trusting in that fabric and that weave. That was kind of a little off topic from where we just were a second ago.
No, I loved it so much. And that's for me the essence of feminine leadership. It always sounds so soft and like the feminine, but it's like you mentioned before, it's also a lot of Kali energy, and to burn things down and to trust that it's in the highest good for all, even if they can't see it yet, even if she wouldn't have received it in the moment, she will in the future, and to trust that it's always in the highest alignment for everyone, even if it means to make people uncomfortable and to break them out of their own comfort zone. Because of course it's safe to have a safe income and to work and to do what and then suddenly from one day to the other this breaks down and you have to find a new way. But to see in the end, this was actually much more in alignment. And feminine leadership for me is really connected to truth of the heart and the soul, and to find a way to communicate it with truth and clarity. Of course, not overstepping other people and to be a mean bitch all the time, but to be clear and anchored in your truth, to not allow anything on the outside to wobble it and to make you overthink and to rethink, but to stay in that. And everything you just shared was so beautiful, embodied already on a really high level of what that means in actual real life, and to have the bravery to trust that it's a new way of showing up and to lead your mission, your life, your business. Every business mentor that is still operating from a more 3D masculine old paradigm approach would probably say you can't shut down your masterminds. This is your main income, but you just knew this is like it's your truth, and it will make even more money probably in the long term.
100%. Actually, the day after I shut them down, I sold like two year-long high ticket memberships out of nowhere that are completely passive. And that was like where, we're directing more of the focus in the business, but without me doing anything, two people spontaneously just hopped into it.
Wow.
With
Yeah.
no extra, see, this is also the mystery and the magic of truth, alignment, energy. And I'm a strategist. I'm very much like in the 3D, but I also know undoubtedly my truth creates a ripple effect that causes different actions to happen. And I've seen it happen so many times that I know it to be truth, even though it doesn't make any sense. I didn't take any action to receive these, $15,000 of confirmation of a shift in something.
Yeah, it was your declaration and also you creating space for that to happen on an energetic level. It couldn't have come in before if you were like, if your energy was occupied with all these other clients and all the things that were not in alignment anymore. It was like an opening for space for magic to happen. And this implements for everything in life. We need that space, that void that feels so scary and that we're avoiding at all costs, to see like, wow, I had no idea. This is so beautiful.
The most magical things come from that space. And that's also like a very kind of feminine, being able to offer ourselves like the unknown and space and room for things to emerge and shift and change and be in that Shakti. That's so like what it takes though to be, because we can say that intellectually and understand, okay, well, you're going to have to create more space and energy for this new thing in your life to emerge, or you have to cut off, you can't be sleeping with the guy who's just really cute and it's fun for now as a lover if you really want a husband. Like that for me never works in relationship. I have to be completely holding the space of, I'm calling this in and I'm not going to let anything else in unless it looks like this. And in my business, I'm not going to accept any other clients other than in the way I want to serve now. But what that it goes back to the emotional alchemy and being able to be a woman who can sit with, well, this is really uncomfortable and I'm really scared, or I'm really angry that this didn't happen right away, or I'm, feeling all of the sadness and grief of being on my own, or the abandonment, and being able to be with that so that you don't take actions just to like cover up those feelings temporarily is the mastery that's required to then get the results and all of the magic of, of course. And even just a couple of days ago, I shut down I wasn't really dating on apps, but I had just opened them up as like curiosity because I hadn't been in America for a while. I was like, what's Bumble? But I realized it's an energy leak. That's not how I want to meet my husband. It's not the aligned strategy. So I completely cut them off. I don't go to any dating events or things that are setups. Like I'm very specific on the serendipity with which I want to meet my person. And I got very clear on that. And I had just been spending like a week or two in the grief of like my breakup and holding my heart and being alone and not looking or talking about men with anyone else. And then like the other day, I met this incredible guy who is on the very much the same path. And he shared like, these are the things he's holding space for. And he's not on the apps and he's not like, he's dating in a very specific way. And I was like, wow, I'm not attached to him being like the guy. It's just life is reflecting back to me that when I can hold that space and hold a standard and be very clear about my desires and have the emotional capacity to stay until I receive them, then I'm rewarded with the energetic match to that.
Yes. And it requires for us to not settle, because sometimes it's so tempting to date a guy that's not in alignment just to get that physical satisfaction or to feel love from the outside if we don't sit with giving that to ourselves, or to have the cheeseburger even though we want to have a healthy body, like this little satisfaction, instead of being in the void of not knowing and not having and just trusting. And that comes with the integrity part that you just said. I trust that I meet my life partner in the most magical way, but then I swipe my way to sleep at night at Tinder and Bumble and all the apps. Like, your mind can trick you that you think you are already in alignment and integrity, but actually your actions show that you're not. And that's so beautiful to really be honest with ourselves and see, this is what I want, but I'm actually not acting accordingly. And I had so many years in my life of celibacy because there was no man coming in that were aligned. And it would have been so tempting to just take the guy that feels half right. But my body was even rejecting, like it just, I couldn't physically do it. And I think it takes a lot of honesty with ourselves to live this life in truth in every area. It's really, you can put this practice into every area of your life and see oops, this is why I don't have what I desire yet, because I settled for something less. We see that in so many relationships. We see that in the business. I want to receive the money that actually feels good for what I give, but I accept the lower paid client just because I want the money to feel safe. Like, we have to give ourselves the things that we desire, so we don't settle for less. We have to have these high standards, and these, we just really, really, really need to have an honest look to see where we live out of truth and alignment. And it takes big steps.
Yes, I love that. I love the not settling. It's so important on every level. And I had this download that came through when I was in Costa Rica a couple of weeks ago. Just this knowing of like, as long as I say no to everything that isn't, as long as I know what I want and I'm clear and it's true, it's like fully in my highest, and I say no to everything that isn't that, there's no doubt of whether or not I will get the thing that I want. It's just, will I settle? And eventually there will be that full yes. But it's discipline. This is the masculine too. Is like, we need the full discipline, the full structure, the full like mission. I know who I am, and the integrity piece, to then not wobble all over the place, and then wait to have that patience and stoicism to wait for the thing that is the full desire.
Yes. And to have that unshakable belief. Like, it's also the subconscious plays such a big role in that. If you have a doubt that he will come, but you say to yourself he will come, it's also not happening. Like, you have to be so deeply in your knowing that even if someone reflects that. I had this conversation the other day on a book launch party of a friend. He said he's polyamorous and he doesn't believe in love and that humans are meant to be. And it was just the opposite of what I believe in and what I'm calling in. And I haven't been dating in a really long time because I just know what I want, and I know how it feels like when I interact with him, and I haven't met him yet. And he just couldn't, it was just like speaking a different language, but it didn't bring me off my path. Like, I still hold that knowing, and I shared it with him, and it's like new neural pathways have been activated in his brain. Like, this is possible, like this exists. He really believed. And I was like, I know it. It's not just a belief. I just know, because I exist, he exists, and he's looking for me too. And I know when we meet, it will be like, we will just know that it's us. And yes, it's really important to know and to believe on every single level, to be so anchored that nothing can rip that anchor off the ground. And like you said, the wobbling is very metaphorically, like, we have to have a straight spine, a hard cock, if you want to say, belief, to not be wobbly into, oh, this person is this belief, maybe he's right, or this, like, we have to be anchored in our truth so deeply to be able to hold the void. Even if it's 2 years we have to wait, or 10 years, or whatever, we have kind of control in our magnetism, but we cannot control divine timing, when and where exactly. This is like the part of magic that we need to trust.
Yes, 100%. I love that. I love that share.
Is there anything on your heart right now that you would love to share with my community and everyone who's listening?
Oh, wow, we covered some really juicy territory today. I'm talking about love, actually, and relationships, and this. I feel like emptied. I feel like we traversed the territory that we wanted to traverse, and I feel like the most important. I mean, my whole book is about being in the void and how much that helped me along the journey of growing a business, and then how much, the emotional practices that I put into place and the health practices that I put into place to do that work. And it feels like a lot of those core messages were conveyed.
Yeah, it feels complete for me too. I have one last question that I ask all of my interview guests, and I invite you to close your eyes for this one. And imagine you could travel back in time to a younger version of yourself, where you didn't go through all these rebirths and death experience, where you were in a time of your life that was much harder and much, where you didn't know the things you know now. If you could tell her one thing that would have helped you immensely on your journey, what would you tell young Elaina?
The version of me who comes up is that 27-year-old who just got fired from her last corporate job, who never saw herself as an entrepreneur, who was totally clueless about what to do next, how to make money, how to exist in the world, who just had this dream of, I want to be able to live abroad and travel and learn languages and be free, but I'm chained to like careers that don't feel good to make money. And I was so stuck then. I did not know anything about online marketing, or I didn't value myself. I didn't think I had anything like being a coach. What? People would listen to me, pay me? I had none of that confidence. I did not see myself that way at all. I think, well, she's the one that I wrote my book for. But I guess the thing that comes to mind is like, get support. Don't do this alone. She went and she tried to do it alone for too long, and it just exacerbated all of the challenges. It just made it go on longer of, working jobs that would just pay $100 an article for a freelance writing thing. And I had to do so many of them in a month to possibly make rent. And it was not advancing my higher path. I would have so much sooner got in rooms with people where they were having these kinds of conversations. I would have so much sooner used my savings to pay a mentor to help me figure out what to do. I so much sooner would have had that energy healer, that naturopath, that therapist. So I think, and that's hard because sometimes we don't feel ready to get the next level of support, but that's at the end of the day where we spiral. It's where I spiraled, was just in my pattern of doing it all alone, being that lone wolf. I'm capable. So when you're really hyper capable, it's easy to go there. But I wouldn't be where I am today without my team, without my mentors, without my community, without Bali, Austin, global tribe of people who do similar things, who opened the ways of doing things by setting an example, by sharing their energy with me. Yeah, that's what I would say to her for sure.
I love that, and that resonates deeply. I've also been the lonely wolf, and I feel it's also a lot of the times trauma related, because we feel safe. That's the only place where we ever felt safe to be with ourselves, and we thought we have to do it alone. And since I went through this huge trauma healing, it just didn't feel aligned anymore. Like, it naturally came that women would support me, and that I just desired a mentor who's done it, so I don't have to go through the mud. I thought I deserved to go through the mud, and it has to be hard. And then I realized if someone has already walked that, so much easier. It saves you time, money, energy, everything. To receive support on what you're struggling with, because you can't see your own blind spot, and you can do it. I always say that you can do it alone. You have the capacity to heal your body. Your body knows you can get where you want to be, but it takes so much longer. And the question is, do you want to do that alone? If you're being held and seen and supported, life can feel really, really good. But I also needed to learn that the hard way, to not buy into the story of the lone wolf over and over. And this was also related why I moved to the island. Like, I needed to go through that. I literally moved to a lonely island, in like a tiny little island in the Pacific Ocean in French Polynesia, to realize that. But I also needed that to go through that. So it was magically aligned. And I wish that everyone realizes that everyone is worthy of their dreams. I think the worthiness piece is also huge, of investing and also believing in yourself, that you can get there, to believe in that version that already has it, and to see you deserve support so deeply. Thank you so much for this conversation, Elaina. I loved having you. How can people support you? Not support you, find you and connect with you online?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. The best place to connect with me is on Instagram at Hey Elaina Ray. And if you guys listen to this episode and resonate, I would love to just get a DM from you and say, hey, I heard you on Tanya's podcast, and this is what resonated. I do read them and really enjoy that. And then if you want to get some support on the business strategy side, the best way is my free training. I have elainaray.com/sought after, and it's the distillation of years and years and years of messaging and marketing strategy that will help you build your brand faster and get more clients and learn the tweaks that make a really big difference in business. So I can't recommend that one highly enough.
I will link it in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I hope this interview touched you, inspired you, moved you. We'd love to hear how it landed, what you took out of it, what resonated, where you maybe saw where you're not living in alignment with your truth. but get inspired to take action, send us a message on Instagram and make sure to connect with Elaina. She shares so much valuable content on her Instagram. You find the link in the show notes. And I'm just going to tease here because I officially share about this offer next week. But as you might have noticed, it's been a bit quiet in my online offering space. I have my Soul-led Mastermind and my one-on-one client. I only work with one person at the moment. And I have been going through a deep winter phase, 3 months of really going deep into my own healing, rearranging my life. And I'm finally on the other side. And this offer came through that I'm going to share with you next week. It's going to be a 2-day home retreat called Cracked Open. So this is a 2-day portal for you if you desire to release the armor around your yoni and your heart and to dive deeper into your body, to release what doesn't serve you any longer so your light can shine and you can really step into the woman you came here to be. And this, what prevents us from stepping into this woman is often stuck emotions in our body. How often as women did we get entered without our full consent? And this creates tension in our yoni, and this prevents also from divine guidance flowing through us, like a blocked channel. And the yoni de-armoring session that I'm going to guide in this home retreat is really, really powerful. So if you already feel you want to join, you can find the link below, but I officially start sharing about it next week. I just wanted to give you a little tease of what's coming. And if you've been wondering why there's not so many offers at the moment, I'm coming back to life, more powerful and more clear than before. And there's also going to be a mentorship program coming in autumn. So if you have been dreaming about becoming a mentor to guide healing and embodiment sessions, to implement feminine embodiment and sacred sexuality into your work, or you desire to start sharing, then this 6 months program might be for you. And I'm so excited. It's also just flowing through me right now. It's still in the creation process, but I just wanted to put it out there to plant the seeds that if this is landing, if you're like, oh my God, I've been waiting for this, I really, really want to become a mentor and to guide women through the same process that I went through. If you are on your journey, then just keep that in mind. There's more information coming soon. And now I leave it like that. And I see you next week.